Family, I want to start with a real question. Not a trigger question. Not a fight question. A thinking question. Is December 18th really Freedom Day instead of Juneteenth? Before anybody tightens up, let me say this clearly. This is not about taking anything away from Juneteenth. This is about understanding what we're actually honoring. Because when you slow history down, something important shows up. So today we're going to walk through it together to find the receipts from the official documents of the United States.
Let's start with what most of us were taught. On January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. That document declared enslaved people free in Confederate states. Declared, not liberated, not rescued, not physically freed. Declared. And that distinction matters, because a declaration on paper does not automatically change life on plantations. Freedom only becomes real when someone shows up to enforce it. And for millions of people, that enforcement didn't arrive for a long time. Sometimes years. Sometimes never in the way we imagine. Remember that emancipation was declared January 1st, 1863. However, it was over 2 years later on June 19th, 1865. Union troops finally arrived in Texas and announced freedom. Texas was one of the last Confederate strongholds. By then, the Civil War had already ended. So Juneteenth marks something very specific. Delayed freedom finally reaching one place. Let me say that again. Juneteenth marks delayed freedom finally reaching Texas. That matters. That story matters. The people who waited matter. Juneteenth honors the reality that freedom was not evenly distributed. It honors survival. It honors endurance. It honors waiting under cruelty. And that deserves respect. Here's where things get interesting. Juneteenth does not mark the legal end of slavery in the United States. It marks enforcement in one region. Important, but regional. Slavery as an institution was not abolished nationwide until later. Much later than most people realize. The 13th Amendment reached the required number of state ratifications on December 6, 1865, with Georgia becoming the deciding state. Some states ratified earlier, including Indiana, in February of 1865. But here's the key moment most people miss. December 18, 1865. That's when the federal government formally proclaimed the amendment. That's when slavery became illegal everywhere in the country. Not just in Texas. Not just where troops had arrived. Everywhere. That's when chattel slavery stopped being lawful in the United States. That's not symbolic. The illegality of chattel slavery is constitutional in law, structural in design, and systemic in enforcement.
Now we're holding space to honor two different dates. Juneteenth represents freedom arriving on the ground in Texas. December 18th represents slavery being abolished nationally under U.S. law. Those are not the same event. And this is where I want us to slow down. Because our culture treats history like it happens in a single moment. But that's not how power works. Power changes in layers. First comes declaration. Then comes enforcement. Then comes legality. Then comes implementation. Then comes repair, if repair ever comes at all. So when we talk about freedom, we have to ask, which layer are we honoring? Are we honoring enforcement in one place? Or are we honoring the legal collapse of the entire system? Both matter, but they are different. Juneteenth honors the people who waited. December 18th marks the system finally breaking on paper. One is human. The other is institutional. One tells the story of survival. The other tells the story of structural change. And I don't think we've ever really been invited to sit with that distinction.
Why does December 18th matter? Because December 18th is when the United States formally acknowledged slavery is no longer legal anywhere in this country. That's not about emotion. That's about law, contracts, property, labor, lineage, who could be owned, and who could not. If you care about generational timelines, if you care about ancestral accounting, if you care about when systems actually shift, December 18th is not a small date. It's the constitutional end of legalized human ownership. That deserves contemplation. That deserves study. That deserves remembrance.
Before we go any deeper, I'd love to hear from you. If this conversation is opening something for you, take a moment to like the video so more people can find it. If you're new here, you're welcome to subscribe. This channel is a space for thoughtful history and real question. Drop a comment and tell me, should we honor both Juneteenth and December 18th? And what does freedom mean to you, emotionally and structurally? Alright, let's keep going.
Now, let me give you a modern example of why filing the paperwork for the 13th Amendment truly matters. Mississippi never ratified the 13th Amendment back in 1865. Slavery was already illegal nationwide. That part didn't change. But Mississippi didn't symbolically ratify until 1995. And even then, the state forgot to file the documents, which means the ratification wasn't officially recorded at the federal level until February 7, 2013. Let that land. Freedom can be declared. Freedom can be enforced. But legality lives in paperwork. And paperwork can be delayed for generations. That's exactly why December 18th matters. Juneteenth shows us how freedom reached people. December 18th shows us when the system finally changed in law. One tells the human story. The other shows how institutions actually move.
Juneteenth became a federal holiday in 2021. That's recent. December 18th, 1865 is rarely mentioned, though it was the pivotal date of change for freedom in the United States. Most people don't even know what happened on that date. And that tells us something. Tells us which stories get amplified and which ones stay buried.
Let me be clear. We are not here to erase Juneteenth. Juneteenth honors the lived experience of people who were left behind. That's sacred. But we are inviting us all to also recognize December 18th as something powerful. The day the institution itself became illegal. The day the Constitution finally caught up to humanity. The day ownership of human beings was outlawed nationwide. That's seismic. So maybe the real question isn't, which date is better? Maybe the real question is, why don't we hold both? Why don't we teach both? Juneteenth honors enforcement. December 18th honors abolition. Liberation versus legality. Survival versus systemic change. Because when we don't teach that, history gets flattened. And when history gets flattened, power stays invisible.
Family, we believe that December 18th deserves recognition. Not instead of Juneteenth. Alongside it. Because December 18th marks when slavery stopped being lawful in the United States. And that matters for every lineage, every ancestor, every descendant. Juneteenth honors the people who waited. December 18th marks the cruel system of human slavery finally breaking. One date speaks to the heart. The other date speaks to the structure. And both deserve space in our collective memory. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think December 18th should be recognized as Freedom Day? Should we honor both dates? What does freedom mean to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this stretched your thinking even a little, tap the like button. Share it with someone who loves history and truth. Here we slow history down so we can actually see it. Now answer the question. Should we honor both Juneteenth and December 18th? Or should December 18th become National Freedom Day? If this video shifted your perspective, hit like button so more people see it. Save it. Share it. And if you're new here, subscribe. This space is for thoughtful history and real questions.